opening song, I will tell you that it is a new song, and it is by our very own, I like to call her our very own. She isn't. We don't own her.
I'm your very own.
We do adore her. It's by Becca and it is called All Is Well. You might be familiar with it. If not, the words are here on the screen, and it's really easy to learn.
It is easy.
Thank you, Becca.
You are welcome.
Do we want to stand up?
Sure, let's stand and
Yeah,
feel
we kind of
the
like
groove.
to
Yes.
get the energy for the day to stand up.
I like this.
Let's do
and
it.
Cynthia just asked if I would just say a little something. This was written at the very beginning of Genesis. Reverend Charles asked if I'd write something for the Genesis community as a celebratory grateful tune at the beginning of Genesis, so we're going to play with a little bit today. It is yours. In the spirit of celebration, we're grateful, we're grateful. In the brilliance of life's perfection, we're grateful, we're grateful for the blessings already given. In the goodness of God we're living, in the finished kingdom of heaven, and all is well, and all is well. All is well. Let's do it together again. In the spirit of celebration, we're grateful, we're grateful. In the brilliance of life's perfection, we're grateful, we're grateful for the blessings already given. In the goodness of God we're living, in the finished kingdom of heaven, and all is well, all is
Yes, indeed. I like it. I didn't know the history of that. It's beautiful. It's wonderful to have you all here gathering together on another Sunday. Just knowing that Genesis is a community that is dedicated to love, inspiring harmony, and creating connections to empower spiritual growth. My name is Karen Williams. I'm a practitioner here at Genesis Center for Spiritual Living, and I'm going to be your host today, and I will also be doing our centering spiritual practices before our message today. Our online host today is Eric, so if you are online, please say hi to Eric. Create your own community in that chat space and those comment sections, saying hello to each other, greeting each other. I'm glad that you're here. Every Sunday we read our mission and vision statement together, so let's do that. Our mission: we are building a vibrant community, cultivating a garden of spiritual growth, honoring vulnerability, creating a safe place of comfort and peace where all are welcome and accepted. And our vision: Genesis is a bright beacon of love with an unshakable heart of flowers. Sorry. Can we start all over? No train wrecks here. Yes, thank you. Our vision: Genesis is a bright beacon with an unshakable heart of love, accepting all. It's a home for the soul where we each creatively express our spiritual brilliance. Let me do some announcements really quickly. have a new course starting soon. This will be facilitated by Cynthia Zink, and it's called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. It's a 6-week course running Tuesdays from October 8 to November 12, 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. via Zoom. It's a deep dive into science and mind principles with engaging lectures, hands-on exercises, and interactive discussions. Learn to break free from limiting beliefs in areas like relationships, money, health, gain practical tools to create abundance, foster those healthy relationships, and enhance well-being. The tuition is $220. Mark your calendars also for October 27. Reverend James will be offering a prosperity class after service from noon to 1:30, and all are welcome to attend. I want to note also that Genesis has recently joined an education alliance with Centers for Spiritual Living in the area. And as a part of this partnership, we'd like to share a couple of classes that are being offered that we have an opportunity to participate in if we feel like we would like to. Those classes are at the welcome table, so you can check those out. After service today, we will be having our book club. We're going to be finishing this beautiful book. If you do not own this book, give a gift to yourself and purchase it. It is beautiful, and we've had a marvelous time with discussions on the concepts and ideas and beauty in this book. We are going to transition next week into this book. It's Thich Nhat Hanh, Going Home, Jesus and Buddha as Brothers. I really look forward to that one. I'm sorry, I went out of order on your slides because I just take those prerogatives sometime, because I intentionally want to put a emphasis on some chaos in life so that we know that we can always overcome it and everything is well, all is well. My election intention. So we are on day, let me see, 60. I'm going to be reading from this one today, today's reading. It is day 71. We are on day 71 of the 100 days. If you haven't gotten on board with this, this is how to do it. It's just a two-minute read every day. Some inspiration, and more on that for sure. Okay. We don't have any first-time guests here. Eric, is anything happening online that we should know about? Right now is our opportunity for our meet and greet. So please stand and take a moment to greet your neighbors. We do love a good meet and greet. And today has been no exception. an exceptional meet and greet. I want to thank our volunteers this morning. Our setup and cleanup crew begins with Cynthia and the welcome table, and Mike and Eric and Jim with all the tech stuff, all the music setup and the altar and this where I'm speaking. Thank you guys so much. Gideon is always here. He's the one who brings it all in so that it can be unloaded. Reminds me of a song, but I'm not going to get into that. Yeah, Christy was our, is our greeter this morning. Thank you, Christy. As I said, Mike and Eric, that's projector and video. Gideon will be doing our offering collection. Jim is our sound tech. We need to reorder these things so I can just point right there for those three guys in the back in a row. And Eric, as I said, yes.
No, this is the nerd tape.
I wouldn't call you guys nerds. That's Jim. That's Jim, who owns being a nerd, and he's proud of it. I think I said that Eric is our online host. We're so grateful for the volunteers that show up here every Sunday. Y'all make this happen. If you want to be a part of this, setting up our coffee bistro or our food or anything, chairs, please let Cynthia know in the back today, or Gideon know that you want to help out, and that you will get directions on how that happens. It's really quite simple. The most simple thing that we can do is after service at the breakdown, we can just take our own chairs and take them to the back. That's something we can do, and it's super simple. All right. So this portion of our service, so we've kind of taken care of the business, and now we're going to get into the centering part of our service before our message, and then after the message, we're just going to tie it all up and finish it off. So this centering part begins with a song, a centering song that Becca will be leading us in, and then I will come in and do a spiritual practice, a breathing practice with the gong. Every time I hit the gong, breath in, a breath out, 3 gongs. Then I'll have the reading, as I said, from the 71st day of the 100 days, leading us into prayer, followed by another song with Becca and into our message. So you know what's coming up. Let's get centered. Let's go within. Becca.
I breathe and turn within. I breathe and turn within. I open up my heart and feel God's presence. I breathe and turn within. I breathe and turn within. I open up my heart and feel God's love. I breathe and turn within. I breathe and turn within.
breathe together. Just writing out that vibration. Day 71 of 100 of intentional mindful practice for our national election. Today's focus is vision. We've all heard this phrase already many times. Tune out the fear and tune into the vision. We could probably, all of us, very easily turn to point out, to name, to bring to mind all the various fears that are available to us. But the question I want us to think about today is, what's the vision? What is it that we're voting for? What is it that we're coming together and bringing this entire collective consciousness around? What's the intention? What is the dream? It's so incredibly easy to notice what's wrong and to notice what we don't want. But the invitation in that's available to us is that everything that we see that we don't want is an idea that can inform us about what it is we do want. So what do you want? What is your dream for the outcome of this election? But not just on voting day. What is your dream of what it means? What's the society that we're building? What's the world that you want to see? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Who is there? What happens in this new vision? Cultivate that question. What's the highest divine idea seeking to be expressed as our nation? And then really deeply sit with contemplative and contemplate. Think about what that looks like for you so that the vision can become alive, so that it can become captivating. So that the vision that is the thing that you look to more than all the other possible things that want to capture your attention and move you in a different way, look to the vision. Be able to name it. Sit down in the stillness and ask your higher wisdom self what it looks like. And allow yourself to dream of a world that works for everyone. An America that works for everyone. Let's take time to be that vision. And so going into prayer with that idea of vision and a world that works for everyone, a nation that works for everyone, a vision that works for everyone. I know that there's only one thing happening. There's only the one thing. It's life unfolding in all of its infinite varieties of expressions and ways of being, some that we agree with and some that we do not. And all is well, because God is love, creation is love, life is love. So name the vision, be the vision. I call that for myself. I recognize it as the thing that lives within all beings everywhere. Each of us who sit here collectively this morning, having listened to the call to action of cultivating that vision of what is possible, the good, the true, the beautiful that is possible in a world that works for everyone, how that looks, how that feels. I know that that is a divine idea. And the more attention that is given to that, the more power that it has, the more momentum that it gains, and the greater expression, that greater pressing out into experience, into the world, creating a world that works for everyone. May this be our highest vision. A world that works for everyone. And may I be an instrument of that unfolding. May I keep in my consciousness those ideas of what is the good, the true, and the beautiful as I see and I'm aware and I take note of the things that I believe are not working, so use that as inspiration to bring forth in me the good, the true, and the beautiful. I use it. I use that as inspiration. I use that. And so knowing this potentiality of love lives in all of us, I imagine the planet with individual lights, billions and billions of light that is the Christ incarnate, love incarnate in all beings everywhere, lighting up the world for that good, the true, and the beautiful. I know that all is well. I know it is well right here, right now, and I know that Genesis is the place that we start to begin to make that happen right now. I give thanks for that. I give thanks for Reverend James as he allows himself to be that hollow bone, that empty vessel that allows Spirit to move through in ways that inspire and move us to do exactly that, be the way, one of the ways that this world can work for everyone. I give thanks for all that, and I know that this service is a continuation of this prayer, of this evolutionary idea, and I let it go and I let it be, and so it is. Becca Palm.
Joyful, dreaming, a heart full of love, so grateful to be overflowing with what life's made of, with this sweet spirit in me. A spirit that's breathing life, oh, living and loving through me. Thanks for this being of wisdom in me, blessing my day. I am so grateful to receive this precious presence lighting my way through this sweet spirit in me. A power that's breathing life, oh, growing and learning through me. Thanks for this being a living, loving power in me, blessing my day. I am so grateful to receive
Thank you so much for that, Becca. So there's good news today to report. England, one of my favorite countries, has closed its last coal-powered electric plant. So not many years ago, 38% of England's electricity was supplied by coal-fired plants, and they replaced it to get all that coal, to keep all that coal from polluting the atmosphere and causing more climate change. Not long ago, it was 38%, and what they replaced the coal-powered electricity plants with was solar and wind. And you would think England has weather like Seattle. Where do they get solar from? Well, 5% of the electric grid is powered by solar, so not a whole lot, but they do have that much sun. And then 33% by wind. They've got lots of wind, just like us. And so it's nice. They've got their electric plants are now replaced, and I mean they still have oil and gas and nuclear, but they've coal is a lot more damaging to the atmosphere than those other substances, and so it's nice to do that. There's some other news today that could be good climate news. Our neighbor Mexico has just installed a president who is a climate scientist. Claudia Sheinbaum is the first female president of Mexico. So instead of calling her El Presidente, they call her La Presidenta. And when she was sworn in, they said, La Presidenta, Presidenta, Presidenta. She's also the first Jewish person to be president of Mexico, and I assume the first climate scientist. She got her PhD in energy systems, and then she was Minister for the Environment under AMLO, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, the previous presidente. And what she did as energy secretary was she reduced the emissions from all their energy plant and she did a lot better waste management, but she did a whole lot with water. She made Mexico more water resilient, capturing rainwater and preserving the water so that they're robust, because water's their issue. And so it's nice to have, they took the person who did such a great job as Minister of Climate, and now she's Presidenta. She was also the mayor of Mexico City for a bunch of years, and as mayor of Mexico City, she did a few things that were very cool. She basically reduced traffic congestion, made it easier to get around, and reduced pollution. How did she do this? She increased the mass transit in the city center, and she redirected cars to highways in the Beltway outside the city. So if you weren't forced to go through congested downtown and fill up the downtown with emissions. You could instead go quickly to where you want to go, or take the bus quickly to where you want to go. So we have high hopes for Claudia Sheinbaum, and we see this as a bright future for Mexico. The people are leaning into the environment. This month, we're talking, our theme is power to the people. And we're talking about, power begins within. And a lot of people are sort of triggered by the thought of power. And I'm going to talk a lot. Dr. David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Force. And I credit David Hawkins. When I was an engineer many years ago, I went to a workshop of his, and he recommended that I go to a New Thought church and study Course in Miracles. And I took him up on it, and hey, it was the right direction. This was before he was an author. He was famous for other things then. But he wrote this book, Power versus Force, where force is a way when you want something to change. With force, you use threats, violence, coercion are ways, and we think of that as power, but really that's more force. And the power you have is in beautiful ideas, and I'll have some examples of it coming up. Well, one example was in England. They decided they wanted to close down all their coal-generating electric power plants, and they found that they had clean energy. There was enough wind and solar in, as cloudy a place as England, luckily a windy, cloudy place, that they could replace their most 38% of their electric grid. Jimmy Carter, I'm going to talk about his use of power. He just turned 100 on October 1st. And although as a president, well, he had a wonderful lasting accomplishment as president. I'm sure he had more than one, but he is one I'm going to talk about. And he really set the standard for what ex-presidents can do, former presidents can do, and the other presidents, have to try very hard to be as accomplished as he was. So Jimmy Carter was born in 1924, son of a peanut farmer, and he grew up when he went to college and became a nuclear engineer to help with the nuclear submarines that the U.S. Is running, which, by the way, as far as we know, they've never had an accident. So they've done pretty well on the nuclear submarines. When he became president, he was the 39th president of the United States. And the lasting accomplishment he's known for is the Camp David Peace Accords. So from 1948 to 1978, Egypt and Israel were implacable foes. They spent every minute thinking about how to do mean things to each other. And Jimmy Carter brought them together with the idea of peace and brought them to Camp David, and they came up with a way Egypt and Israel could be at peace. And for 46 years, they have not been at war. They've continued to be at peace. They don't have to be best friends. They're just not trying to kill each other. We're very happy about that. And this we credit to Jimmy Carter. And this appears to, there's nothing blocking this. We could see this going forever into the future. So this idea, instead of using the force of trying to defeat each other's armies and kill lots of people, they had the idea of peace and negotiating the differences. And this is a powerful thing that Jimmy Carter gets credit for. When he was done being president, actually the first thing he did, which you guys have probably seen because there's always news photos of it, he started building houses for poor people, Habitat for Humanity. And it turns out in the years he's been doing it, he's been part of building 4,900 houses. Yeah, so lots of houses. And so this is a big contribution. But he also created the Carter Center. And the Carter Center decided to take on an illness. It's called guinea worm, and the reason we probably haven't heard of it was only a problem in 20 countries, 17 in Africa and 3 in Asia. But it affected 3.5 million people. And I'm hesitant as to tell you what it did. What would happen is people would drink guinea worm larvae from infected water sources, and then it would burst out of them like in the movie Alien. Sorry, I'm sorry for that image. But you can see 3.5 million people per year this was happening to, and he said, this doesn't have to happen. So the big idea was filter the water. If you filter the water, you never ingest the larvae. And from 1980, when 3.5 million people per year were getting this awful, awful thing, last year it was 11 people. And it's down from 20 countries. There are only 5 countries that anybody gets guinea worm in. And so they're continuing to have people use filtered water. It took them a while because this was a terrible thing, but they didn't see what it had to do with water. And how do you get water filters? So what they did was they went into one village at a time, created a source of filtered water so everybody had access to filtered water, and taught them to just drink water from filtered sources, no other sources. And they tried to block all the other sources so that everybody would drink the filtered water and have lots of filters. And then as these villages each became free of this awful condition, they brought people in from other villages to see, and they're like, we want that, we don't like this thing. And that's how it spread. An idea spread by a few people who were dedicated to it, who spread the idea, who implemented it, and then spread it all around. So now guinea worm it's not quite unknown, but we hope it'll be unknown, probably in our lifetimes. Now let's give this affirmation. I go within to connect with my source of power. Another time, I go within to connect with my source of power. So our source of power is not where you would expect it to be. When people think of power, they think of force, they think of coercion, they think of violence. But really there's more power in love, in big ideas, in reason, in community. And so that's where we're going to go. I'm going to talk about the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. Alice Walker said that. And so I want you guys to know, you have power, we all have power. We have power individually, we have power in community, and it's the power of the ideas. Ernest Holmes says, there must be a recognition that the power of the word, operating as the truth and reality of being, can do all things. The power of the word, operating as the truth and reality of being, can do all things. And so this is what the Carter Foundation did. This is what the people of England did. And people of Mexico are working on it with Claudia Scheinbaum. Let's go to the funnel, Mike. So this is an artistic expression of a concept of Dr. David Hawkins. And it's often called the chart of emotions, but you can see that the emotions down here, they're sort of the suffering kind of emotions, and where we feel contracted. And then as our emotions get more energy, we become more expanded. And I will actually walk us through the whole thing, but I want us to start off by talking about one of the big ideas happening in Seattle right now, which is Sound Foundations, the Hope Factory, which builds tiny homes. And several of us, Charles, Eric, Lorianne, and Willie, and me, went to visit last Sunday, and I actually got to help. We got to hear Barb Oliver, who is she's the spark. She's the brilliant spark running the place and organizing the place. And I actually got to help build a tiny home. One of the things they've got in their tiny home factory is every week they build 4 new tiny homes. And so there's 200 tiny homes they're building per year. They take 2 weeks off for Christmas. And what we did last Sunday was we had like a platform that was the foundation, and then we lifted up one wall and then, fastened the wall in place, and then the second wall, a third wall, the wall with the door hole, and then we stuck up the roof. And once we'd done that, so in just a couple of hours, we built the frame of a tiny home. And then we got magic markers and we got to sign the walls. And the walls, well, it was the inside part of the walls that's going to be covered by drywall and insulation. But it was messages of love. You know, big hearts, you got it, this is your key to a new future, you know, only joy for you. And so those houses are filled with that energy. So why is she building tiny homes to help the homeless? Well, Barb talks about what it's like being an unhoused person in Seattle. And you're definitely on the suffering end of the spectrum. She talks about, you know, if I were unhoused and I was on the sidewalk or on the park next to my friend who has a tent, and the friend has a sandwich and is getting ready to eat it, but has to run into the tent for something, and I'm starving. I have not eaten in way too long. And without even thinking about it, suddenly that sandwich is in my stomach. And when the person comes out and asks, what happened to the sandwich? You know, I'm like, I don't know. And so now I'm a liar and a thief. And it's because my situation is so hopeless. What we do now with people who are unhoused is City of Seattle spends $38 million every single year on sweeps, on trying to get those people off the streets by taking their stuff and throwing it away and telling them they're not to appear on those streets anymore. And yes, you know, I want to have my sidewalks clear. I want to be able to use my public parks. And I think there's a better way to do it. King County spends also more than $20 million on sweeps. So between Seattle and King County and all the other cities, you know, $60 million is probably a low estimate for how much is spent. Barbara has a solution for ending homelessness in King County, which would cost about $16 million a year. But I want to talk about her method because it's very powerful. So we were sitting with our unhoused person who's feeling bad about themselves because I ate my friend's sandwich and now they're starving, and I'm not much less starving. But if somebody gives me the opportunity to live in a tiny home village, 93% of people take that opportunity. So it's not for everybody, but when you talk about power versus force, if we have enough tiny home space, we can move people in. So assuming somebody asked me, do I want to be in a tiny house? I'm part of the 93%. I would go in, come to the village with my possessions in my hands, and the first thing they do is give me a tiny house with and the key to the door. And so I come in and I drop my stuff and I see, you know, I look in from the front door, and the houses are designed to look as big as possible when you're standing at the front door. From the front door you can see a window through the house, and they've got the lines on the floor all lined up just so it looks extra big. I come to the house and I drop my possessions, and then they bring me to the kitchen where I get to eat as much as I want and take any other leftover food, any other food I need to my tiny house. They bring me to a pantry where I can get toiletries, I can get clean, dry clothes, and I can get myself set. So suddenly I go from being on the street, hungry, unsafe, to being warm, safe, fed, looked after. They have a big fence around, an 8-foot fence around every tiny home village. Part of this is to help the tiny home people, the villagers, feel safe, because there's a lot of hostility to people, to unhoused people, and so they want to feel safe, and so they do. This is one of the things they get. Sometimes they'll actually stay. As soon as they get all that stuff, they'll go into their tiny home and they won't come out for days just because they're so happy to be there, and they're just recovering from the trauma of having been on the streets. But when they come out, there are other people, they find other people in the community, and they get to be part of the community. They get to patrol around picking up litter, they get to clean the laundry, clean the bathroom, clean the kitchen, clean the showers, make sure that they have a good environment, and patrol. They have a security patrol to make sure that everything's safe and sound, that nothing bad's going on. So 24/7, they have communal security. So suddenly they're part of a community. They're warm, safe, dry. When you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, at the bottom two that you need before you can go anywhere else is physical. You need your body to be safe. You need food, you need warmth, you need water, and you need safety. And then the next is community. Community is the third step of the pyramid, and you've got that community. And then esteem is the next step. And this is where, after the person's been there for a few days and they're part of the community, they're noticing that some of their friends in the community are going to school. There's education for people like that, so that they can learn a trade. You know, do they want to be a welder, an electrician, a plumber, cosmetologist? You know, there are schools where you can learn a trade, and there's a social worker who will sign you up for those things. If you just want a job, there are plenty of jobs. We live in in a time of employee shortages. And so there are people who are eager to hire these guys. You know, before, when you're living on the street, you can't get a job because if you go away and you leave your stuff, it won't be there when you come back. Whereas if you have a tiny home where you have the lock, you have the key to the lock, you know it's going to be there when you come back. So you can work. What happens in 4 months, people are out of the tiny homes into working and house situation. Tiny homes works in conjunction with Lehigh, the Low Income Housing Institute, that comes up with housing for low-income people all over the county. And so they actually have enough of these homes for everybody from the tiny home village, so that they can move the next person and the next person and the next person. But when new people come, everybody welcomes them into the community. So tiny homes and tiny home villages, there's more to it than it seems. It's not just getting a shelter over somebody's head. That's like the very basics of it. It's getting you shelter, it's getting you safety, it's getting you community, it's building your esteem, it's giving you the power and the energy and the education so that you can get a job. And it's giving you the support system to lean back on in case there are other problems. There are 14 tiny home villages in King County, and 2 of them are wet ones. They're ones where substances are allowed. So if you're an alcoholic or a drug user, there are places for you too. And if you're sober, then there are more places, that works more easily. Most recently, I don't know if anybody read the article in the Seattle Times on Saturday where they talked about, it is disappointing that Burien, turned down the opportunity to host a tiny home village earlier this year. And right now they have 250 tiny homes in their inventory waiting for new tiny home villages for them to appear in. But luckily, Pierce County took 49 the other day, and they're intending to expand to at least 250 and maybe 500. So Pierce, when we build our tiny home, it'll either go to King County or Pierce County. We've got enough use for it to keep it around here. So mark that date on your calendar, Sunday, January 26th. There's a sign up so we can notify you. It's months away, but it's pretty easy. You bring your gloves so you can work. Anybody 16 or over is welcome, so you can invite your family and your friends to come along. They like you to be ready to paint in case that's what happened. The day, last Sunday, it wasn't painting. We actually got to put up a house, which I was lucky. Christy went another time, and she got to put up a house, which is what inspired me. I just find it so cool that you go there, and there's just a bunch of things laying around, and suddenly there's a house. And it's a house, what's nice, when the people are laying in there recovering or getting their esteem or building community, all those messages on the wall, I think, permeate the house. It's the messages, it's the energy behind the messages, it's the community behind the village. It's pushing love, it's growing love. So I'm going to move us back down. I'm going to actually walk us up the chart of emotions a little bit. I'm going to be acting out and going one by one. And as much as you can, if you're comfortable, you could join me in moving through the emotions. So we start with shame. And shame is where you just feel like terrible about yourself and like you're an awful person. And it's very constricted. And you feel very low. And then guilt is a little more energy. You're not feeling like you're worthless, but you feel like you've done something bad, something really awful. And then apathy. It's remarkable to think that apathy has more energy than anything. But apathy, where you just like, nothing matters, I can't make a difference. At least I'm not actively hurting myself when I'm doing that. I'm just feeling like dead. So dead is a step up from something. And then moving into grief. You've seen grief, how could they do this? How could this happen to me? How could this happen? That's got more energy. You can feel it's got way more energy than apathy. And then moving into fear. Fear is interesting because it's, you want to stay safe, but it's moving. Those other ones, grief, apathy, guilt, and shame, you're stuck. You're immovable. But once you make it up to fear, you can at least move. I think a lot of the people on the street are in the grief, apathy, guilt, and shame part of it. And so that's one reason they get stuck, in the places these guys live. On the one hand, it seems creative. On the other hand, it's awful. I would not want to live on a highway off-ramp. But they're stuck in it. Beyond fear is desire. I want. Buddha said desire is the root of all evil. It's the source of our problems. And it's because it's attractive, because you feel like, I should have it. But it's a negative emotion because it's not it's not the kind of desire that this is who I really am and this is what God and I can make happen. That happens up here. This is suffering desire. This is like, I want to have it, but I can't. Anger. Anger is a lot of movement. And some people have advocated anger for, trying to fix long-time unjust situations. But that's really sort of in the force versus power camp. Sometimes there's a need for force. Sometimes there's a need for anger. But really, as much as you can avoid it, there are more powerful ways to do it that don't end up injuring people. There's so many negative side effects of that. And then pride. Pride is nice, except this is the kind of pride where you're feeling better than other people. Well, at least I'm not those people. And that can lead to a lot of negatives, too. So courage, the word courage has cœur in it, which is the French word for heart. So this is where we finally got our heart into it a little bit. And courage is where, you bolster together your courage so you can finally do something. And so you can see we're moving from suffering into getting by, like anger and pride especially is a little more like getting by. Courage is definitely getting by, because and neutrality, this is where you accept that things, not everything is right in the world, but the world is the way it is, and I'm neutral. And then willingness, this is where you get into the expanded sense, into the flow. Willingness, where you're willing to do things. This is where they really build it into the tiny home villages. I'm willing to help communally clean. I'm willing to help keep us safe. I'm willing to work with the community. Acceptance, where you accept what your situation is. You accept all the people. You have a whole village of imperfect people. I mean, how perfect can they be if they've just been over here in this contracted state lately? But you can see the potential. You can accept them for the beauty and the love within them. Reason. This is what we saw in the case of the Carter Foundation and the guinea worm. There was this awful thing happening in just 20 countries, but to millions of people every year. And Reason showed us that it was something that could be filtered out of the water. And so there was a scientific way to do it. And all they had to do was figure out how to make people change their behavior, how to bring in the technology and have people change their behaviors so they no longer drank water from the old sources ever, but only from the new sources. Interestingly, once you do that, the old sources become safe because there are no more guinea worms, because they only breed inside people. But nobody's going to do that. Everybody's with filters. I don't know why I said that. And then from reason, you move up to love, where you love. And we do a love meditation a lot, where we breathe into our hearts and we bring the power of love. And you can see how expanded it is. Joy is even more, it's sort of more of an exuberant love. Peace. And this is what, our theme has been, is peace. And we have the power to bring peace. And peace is even beyond joy. It's like got that freedom, it's got that peace, connection, and then enlightenment is even beyond that. So this, I think, is the secret to the tiny home villages and why it's different than a lot of ways of dealing with unhoused people. Because it takes them out of this, but it treats them, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it keeps everybody safe, and then it lets them build community. And then it lets them use their effort, use their connections, use their ability to get educated to get a better job or to take a job which they're already qualified for and become self-sufficient and then get the help they need to move into housing. This is, I think I said it's about $16 million a year to keep the tiny home villages happening, which is far less than the approximately $60 million a year we're spending on the force method of pushing people off the streets. We do need more places for tiny home villages, so if you know of any, Barb Oliver would welcome the opportunity to gift them tiny homes. And other cities are working on this. They have Jacksonville, Florida, Tucson, Arizona, Detroit, Nashville are all building their own tiny home hope factories, tiny home manufacturing facilities. So this is an idea that's spreading like this solution to guinea worm, hopefully quicker. There are University of Washington architect students and University of Arizona architecture students are also coming to design new kind of tiny homes that can be flat packed so you could ship a whole village on a truck. Right now, they're built in place and it takes lots of trucks to move a village. But so there are lots of good things going on, and we can be a part of it. We're already a part of it, and we can continue. So January 26th, there's a sign-up sheet. This is the idea of like of our power. Our power is in ideas. Our power is in community. Our power is in seeing the benefit of these things and moving towards them. Our power lies within. It's not, when you think of power, you think of force. No, power is in brilliant ideas that inspire people. So, Mike, can we go back to our affirmation slide? I go within to connect with my source of power. 2 more times. I go within to connect with my source of power. I go within to connect with my source of power. And those ideas, that love, that community are things that we can spread, we can bring around the world, like England with its coal power plants, like Mexico with their Claudia Scheinbaum, their environmental engineer, like Jimmy Carter and Guinea Worm, and like we hope, Sound Foundations bringing an end to homelessness, within a few years, if we can manage to do it. So thank you, and be sure to look within. One of the things when you find yourself. When I find myself in the constricted frame of mind, I just remember that isn't the real me. It's just constricted, that the real me is peace. The real me is love. The real me is hope. And then as I turn my attention away from that, then I have the gumption to welcome it. But now it's time for our prayer cards. And on one side is a demonstration. And anytime, if you know of any prayers that you had or anybody else that have ever come true or gotten results, I'd say write it down there, because that makes your other prayer much more powerful. And then for your prayer, you can pray for yourself, you can pray for a loved one, you can pray for a solution to unhoused people in our time. You can pray for more good ideas, more power, more empowering of people with brilliant ideas to care for each other, bring more community, and bring more love into the world. And if we can have some prayer music. Thank you, Becca. People at home can pray on genesiscsl.org.
Invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. One power indescribable, you speak of it with every word you say. It's mysterious until you know the truth. It's as simple as the love inside of you. We call it God. We speak so many languages, have different clothing, different colors, different names. But difference only dangerous when we forget that in the heart we're all the same. We'll remember once we close our eyes to see that such distances were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, Buddha, Baha'u'llah, Hashem, heaven's doors. It's Muhammad, it's your mind, it's your soul, it's a sign, it's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth or Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's the power of love in you and me. It's the moment of creation. It's an everlasting peace, the freedom of forgiveness, the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration, the sunshine on your face, the birthright of all nations, the boundlessness of space. It's the beauty of a baby, the serenity of sleep. It's the anchor we abandon for love that's most deep. It's the power of love that lives forever in you and me. It's the power of the love in you and me.
Thank you so much. One power, one life, one love. It's you and me. Our center is supported by God, and we welcome you to be a part of how God's support shows up. If you are on Facebook, please visit our website at genesiscsl.org, or you can text your tithes to 206-800-7595. So we're going to take a moment to make our gifts right here in this handy dandy packet. This envelope or online. So if you feel called to, you can put your prayer and your offering close to your heart while we do our offering blessing. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am thankful. Gideon's going to come around and collect these prayers and offerings. Know that the prayers will be distributed to our practitioners, a number of them who are here today, and then we will pray on them all week. So while Gideon's doing that collection, if you'll sing along with God is my source.
God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything.
I just want to acknowledge how we have each initiated the law of circulation, that as we give, so shall we receive, pressed down, multiplied, and overflowing into our individual lives, into the lives and the vision of Genesis itself, and out into a world that works for everyone. And so it is. Let's stand and sing our closing song, I Release.
Let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I am only here for God. No more struggles, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggles, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God.
Thanks for being here. Let's stay for some fellowship and have a great week.